There's a tight race in the election for prime minister. Exit polls reportedly show Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his main challenger, Benny Gantz, neck and neck. Netanyahu has served as prime minister for 10 years, but has faced a recent series of corruption investigations. Gantz is a political newcomer and former chief of staff of the Israel Defense Forces. He is seen as a centrist and has presented himself as the scandal-free alternative to Netanyahu. CBS News correspondent Seth Doane is covering the election for us from Tel Aviv. He's at campaign headquarters for Benny Gantz. Seth, thanks so much for joining us. How are the candidates reacting to news that this race is too close to call?
That's right. It is a real nail-biter here tonight. People watching the television predictions through the evening here, and really very too close to call. There is a celebratory atmosphere here at the Blue and White Party headquarters. Benny Gantz just took the stage behind me here and declared victory. He said, "I will be your next prime minister here in Israel. I will be a prime minister for everyone." But the key thing here is, Elaine, you also have Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declaring victory and saying that now he is trying to form a government tonight, though we are also hearing reports that some of the typical partners that he would turn to have not promised that they will go with him. They, of course, have to have a coalition government because there's no clear winner here, so you need a coalition of parties to form a government.
Seth, I want to ask you about the role President Trump has played in this election, and how has his relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu impacted the race?
You have seen President Trump on the sides of billboards pictured next to Benjamin Netanyahu. Netanyahu, through this entire campaign, has really been trying to make the most of that relationship and has seen President Trump give him some key diplomatic coups, some real wins here in recent weeks, certainly recognizing the U.S. recognizing Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, which was seized from Syria back in 1967 in the Six-Day War. That was seen as a huge diplomatic coup here. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been trying to tell Israeli voters, trying to convince Israeli voters that no one else really has these relationships, not only with President Trump, but also with Vladimir Putin, another ally. And we saw Netanyahu take a high-profile trip to Moscow just last week.
And Seth, if Benny Gantz were to win, would that change anything for U.S.-Israel relations?
Well, we took that question to Benny Gantz himself. He wouldn't sit down with any foreign media just ahead of the election, so we tracked him down at what they called a salon, a kind of Q&A event, and we got a question to him. We said, you know, President Trump has made, or Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has made so much of his relationship with President Trump. Isn't that a bad thing for you because you don't have that relationship? And he said, listen, Gantz said, listen, I believe that the relationship between countries, between Israel and America, is stronger and will persevere despite whoever happens to be in office. So he was saying that would not be a real issue for Israel. Israel and America would continue to move forward as very strong allies. Of course, that's a case he's been trying to make to voters here as well.
Interesting. Well, there are also reports that this election had historically low turnout among Arab voters. What was behind that?
Well, that's right. The numbers are lower than they were in the last election. And we were in an Arab-Israeli village in the lead up to this election. We were trying to go around and talk to different people. We, of course, were here in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. We went into the settlements, and we also went to this Arab-Israeli village. And it was interesting. The people there that we spoke with said, I feel left out of the political process. One young man said, look, I care more about football than I do about politics because it really doesn't matter who I vote for. These people won't represent me. We heard from another girl who was a grocery store clerk, a young Arab Israeli girl who was eligible to vote for the first time, but she said, I don't know if I will vote because we live here, in her words, as second-class citizens, and I don't believe that my vote will really count. And we are seeing a lower turnout tonight, although those tallies are still, those votes are still being tallied.
Well, Seth, what are the main issues Netanyahu or Gantz will focus on once this election is decided?
Well, security, Elaine, is always number one. This is a small but strong country, and they're looking for strategic allies. Certainly they find relationships with Moscow and Washington, D.C. to be very important. So security is often the number one issue when you talk to Israelis. But there are also all of the domestic issues that you would expect as well, that we hear about in America. Education is a big one here. At that event with Gantz the other night, we heard him talking about education and infrastructure. So some of those domestic issues that you would expect as well.
All right, it is down to the wire where you are. Seth Doane, thanks very much, Seth.